Broadcasting from the Allen B. Levan NSU Broward Center of Innovation at Nova Southeastern University. Welcome to Sunshine Startups Live, featuring rockstar entrepreneurs, bright ideas, and experts on the startup ecosystem. And now your hosts of Sunshine Startups Live, Jim Ryan and John Wensveen.
Hi, welcome back to Sunshine Startups Live. This is the podcast where we talk about all things startups and economic engine in the state of Florida. I'm investor, entrepreneur, and co-host with my friend here, John Wensveen at Sunshine Startups Live. John, we are just coming back from our season 2 here and second year of the Levan Center, and you've got to be tremendously proud.
Yeah, it's good to be with you. So John Wensveen, Chief Innovation Officer here at Nova Southeastern University and Executive Director of the Levan Center of Innovation, also known as the world's first theme park for entrepreneurs. I have to talk really fast because we have a very long name. And so, yes, we're in season 2, which is amazing. Who knew we'd get through season 1 with Sunshine Startups Live? We got a following. Time to ask for those sponsors. So if you're interested, we can get your name out there. And yes, extremely proud of the Levan Center, just having celebrated our 2nd year anniversary, and I'm still on a high from that. And what was exciting about that event is that our guest that's with us today was also at that event and got up on stage and had an opportunity to pitch who she is and what she does and her connection to the Levan Center. So I'm really excited.
Yeah, it's going to be a great podcast. And we've had some really great startups with traction. This one included today, the revolution with artificial intelligence. Lots of businesses out there talking about AI and so forth. This entrepreneur is doing it. And revolutionizing with human resources. Beth Elletson with her company Abe. And Beth, thanks so much for coming on board the podcast with us today.
Happy to be here.
So I'd like to wind the clock back a little bit as we typically do, and we talk about your bio and your background. You've got a great background with being Chief People Officer for the Miami Marlins, which must have been a fascinating and exciting opportunity. Jumped on board to become an entrepreneur. So tell us a little bit about Beth.
Sure. I am born and raised here in South Florida and went to the University of Florida. So my whole career, sports have kind of been woven through my story. I had the opportunity to run Tim Tebow's nonprofit in college. And from there, I just leapt right into Enterprise Rent-A-Car, where many of you probably know somebody that's worked at Enterprise. And that's really, I got introduced to recruitment and jumped into HR, had the opportunity to flip around a underperforming region. And I got pregnant with my first son and decided to make a career change. And from there, I went into physician staffing, spent 3 years there leading and building out their whole human resources function. And you'll see a theme here. I got pregnant with my second son. And at that moment is when I thought I was going to start my own business. But in the same time, the chief people officer job at the Miami Marlins came open. And I said, you know what? Let me just throw my name in the hat. Let's see if I have a chance here. And sure enough, 13 interviews later, I was offered the position in the Miami Marlins. So I was able to spend 2 seasons there, was brought in for recruitment and culture and training and development, which are really my bread and butter. And, with 2 littles at home, I was, working 6-7 days a week. And it really came down to the point that I said, you know what, there's something bigger and a bigger purpose I can serve here. And that's where I took the leap of faith. And I came home one night, my husband said, he looked at me, he goes, you're done and you're ready to do your own thing. He just knew it. And I said, you're right. And so we sat down and I spent about 3 months ideating and understanding what I was really good at, what I was passionate about, what I love to do, and how I could make money. And that's really where the story of Abe started.
So we're going to get into a dive of what Abe is, but I think it would be a great place to start with why your company is named Abe. And I know a lot of people, when they hear this, like, no way, this is cool, because it's not just a name. There's a whole meaning
and it doesn't have to do with Lincoln.
Well, it
kind of does a little bit. Actually, funny to know. It actually has a lot of deep meaning to me. So my pop-up happened to be born on Abe Lincoln's 100th birthday, and his name was Lincoln. And he grew up in the Great Depression. And when he was going to college, his parents really almost mandated that he be a physician. And he said, you know what? I don't want to do that. I'm not passionate about that. And he went on to actually become a doctorate of music. And because he followed this passion, because he followed his strengths and his needs and what was fulfilling to him, he ended up becoming this world-renowned conductor. He traveled the world. He ended up writing the Northwestern Fight Song. He was a really world-renowned professor, putting in different music programs. And when I thought about what my company is supposed to do and our mission and values, he embodied that. And it's about finding that fulfillment. It's about trusting yourself, betting on yourself, but also knowing where your skills are, knowing where your strengths are. And he ended up having this beautiful career and this fulfilling career that had he been a physician, he never would have experienced that.
What was your dad's name, curiously?
So my dad's name, this was my pop-up. So,
Okay.
But his name was Lincoln Igo, I-G-O-U. And I go, you go, we all go with I go is his saying. But he's just, part of that story too is I wouldn't be here. He actually, didn't even share this. He adopted my mom. So, this whole story, there's a lot of purpose behind it, a lot of meaning. I'm a family person. That is my number one core value. I will never make a decision without them being my first in mind. But like I say, happy moms mean happy kids. And a lot of what you do in the workplace is indicative of your overall wellness. So pop-up, link, that's why we're called ABE.
Well, thanks for Pop-Pop's inspiration there. And I love the story, the background. It's terrific. So talk about ABE, ABE, the company now.
Sure.
What does it do? What's the purpose and so forth?
So when I went through that deep reflection of trying to figure out what I wanted to build, what I wanted to solve for, in human resources, I was layering technology on technology to hire, fire, promote, train, and develop. And I had this aha moment where I said, if we're using all of this data to make decisions about other people, why are we not building a data-driven solution to help the individual themselves? And how powerful would it be if we could equip individuals with technology to make better career decisions? And when we looked at this whole thing, and what ABE really is we're a data company that's layered with AI, and we can go into details about that. But when I looked at what I was trying to solve for in companies, engagement, fulfillment, retention, it all starts with who you hire. So when we look at the hiring process, we kind of coined the phrase professional catfishing between resumes and job descriptions. And AI has actually exacerbated the problem where we're saying, what does it mean to be the right fit? And how do we really assess that? How do we take away all the misfits from this job opportunity before you even see the thousands of resumes? How can we do that? And through our research and a lot of research in judgment and decision-making, it starts with Maslow's hierarchy of needs. And at the end of the day, if that person's foundational needs cannot be met by that company, whether it's compensation, culture, leadership style, work flexibility, they should never even see the job. Take that off the table, because not only does it help the individual, but we're helping the companies. And then we look at and we say, okay, what's the right match? So now we know their needs. Let's see if their needs can be met. Do they have the skills to do the job day one? And oftentimes what we find with job descriptions are copy and pasted from other job descriptions, right? They're throwing a couple jobs in it. They're aspirational. But what ABE says to the companies is like, no, day one, what needs to get done? If you said this person will be successful in this role, if they can do X, Y, and Z, that's what ABE is about. So we say, okay, from an individual standpoint, we have a proprietary way of verifying and validating performance levels of those skills. So rather than somebody just saying, here's my resume, we actually say, no, this person has X, Y, and Z measured. And then the last part is about culture fit. Now, what people get wrong, and I've lived this, everybody's probably lived this, is like the mission and value statement on a company wall is not your employee experience. That's like a motto, right? It's something that everyone can talk about. It's a unifying language. But the actual experience and culture fit is that supervisor you work for and that team that you work around. So what ABE does is we streamline that entire process. We make the right matches from the beginning. And that's just us getting started. So as our users build their profile and their data-driven kind of portfolio, almost like a GitHub, but for non-technical individuals, now we can build in. So our go-to-market is we're launching our hiring software, but then we're going to be able to integrate in training and development, career mapping, and things that can really empower that individual that will in turn help companies.
So I think I understand the employer side of it, but if I'm the future employee, the job seeker, am I applying to that company and your technology is doing the screening, or am I applying to ABE and then you're making the match with
So the really cool thing is job seekers are exhausted, right? They're applying.
I know I am.
I know. All those applications.
No one will hire me.
I think you're doing okay.
You work too many hours.
I think you're doing about 3 jobs now, right? But you know what we do and what we're kind of evolving in this talent space is having this like centralized talent pool. So the jobs actually get brought to the individual where they're an automatic match. So rather than having to apply and say, I want this company, because guess what? There might be companies out there that you never would look at, maybe a mid-sized company that maybe doesn't have the branding, but guess what? They can meet your needs. You have the skills to do well, and you're going to fit in their culture. So our whole idea is instead of the mass blindly applying to job descriptions and websites about employer branding, rather it's the real job, the real people. So you don't have to apply at all. They actually come to you.
And am I paying you for the service?
So how Abe is built right now is that the individual user, I say every service and feature they have today is free. So the accomplishment tracker, the document storage, our AI career coach, that all will remain free because at the end of the day, we're building a marketplace. So we want to encourage them. We want to empower them to advocate and advance for themselves. Now, as we enhance our features and as we integrate in partners and in training groups, things like that, yes, there could be opportunities for them to pay. But for what they have now, they can forever be free with us in the services that we provide today.
So talk about traction of the business. And I know you are one of the companies accelerating here at the Levan Center. And then also, in addition to that, got a chance to see you at Emerge down in Miami. So talk about sort of the traction that you're getting today. What are you hearing from potential venture capitalists as you're looking to continue to fundraise?
Yeah, no, that's a great question because, for me, and I'm new to VC, right? I'm new to fundraising and I'm always of that mindset, like I'm going to compete. I'm going to win them over. But at the end of the day, if you're not in their investment portfolio and you're not the stage that they invest in, they're not going to invest in you. However, what I will tell you, even, we're pre-revenue, we're doing pre-seed and angel round funding. So even those VCs that are actually, we're not qualified to have conversations with yet, we had great conversations with just to introduce ourselves. And what I said to them, I said, well, I don't want your money. I don't fit your profile. It's the wrong match, right? Wrong match. But I'd love for you to use Abe to hire for your portfolio companies. And let me show you how it works. Let me show you that we will win for you. And then it's a no-brainer when we ask you for an investment because you're going to see it in action.
They're already a customer.
Exactly. So we're always, that user attraction. So we've released a couple core segments. One is college and universities. That really, we come into play where we serve their alumni basis. So once people graduate, there's no longer kind of that technology or service level. And with our research, we know those first 3 years of your career are really going to lead you on that trajectory from a compensation standpoint. So the more we can support them and help them, not only do we help the professional, but we also help the universities when it comes to their own state funding based on their employment rates. So we have a handful of colleges already signed up on board with us launching this fall. And then we have our veteran organizations. So APE has technology and is able to help convert veterans' past experience, their performance reviews into civilian work experience. So we're working with Mission United, which is connected to the United Way, and helping them build out what that function will look like in their own organization. And then lastly is really our companies. And our companies and what we're hearing, the feedback, they feel like it's a coin flip when they're hiring, right? So if this helps, we're in. So I said, you know what? You can keep all your technologies, you can keep your processes. Abe will connect into your software automatically to source for you, to provide that filter for you. Just give us a shot. So the feedback we're getting is great. We're having companies pre-sign up saying, give us the opportunity. Again, we'll pilot with as many organizations and in partnership with the Levan Center, leveraging those relationships and leveraging those larger communities that could really benefit from that centralized talent pool to hire better for their community.
So what I like about you is you're homegrown, South Florida. You're staying in our community. You're building a business. You're a female founder. I'd like to get your input in terms of what it's like to be in this growing innovation ecosystem here in South Florida, or perhaps it's the state of Florida, depending on where your footprint is. And what's the journey looking like? What is the infrastructure? What are the pros and the cons of what's going on?
Sure. For me, I think Florida, and I don't want to say we have a chip on our shoulder, but we have a lot of catching up to do. And I think because of that, there are a lot of resources that are becoming available to us that if you were to go to California or New York, maybe they come with more strings attached. And I think what's really cool about Florida and specifically South Florida is that it's a helper community. Now, will that sustain once it continues to expand and people start moving here? Who knows? But I wholeheartedly want to take advantage of that, right? And have that opportunity to say, we're homegrown talent, we're female founded, but we've got an incredible solution. So I would say that Miami and Broward, I think there's a lot of cooperation together. But I also think, even in this whole South Florida ecosystem, there's a little jockeying going around, right? Of who's in control, who's in power, who's the best of the best. So I think that's kind of going to be interesting to see unfold. And I think the other piece that I see is the people who are saying they will help you are actually doing it. And I think that that's been a really cool part of this experience for me, is people I didn't know 6 months ago are in my corner and are supporting me. So overall, I think it's amazing. I will always be in South Florida. My whole family unit is here. But it's exciting to be on the early stage of that and to see like, hey, can we be one of the biggest things to come out of South Florida? And that's a badge I would wear pretty proudly.
So talk about, continue on that experience. So, we have startups that watch the podcast, listen to the podcast today. They're always looking to pick up some, nuggets of wisdom. Talk about a little bit about some of the things that you've learned so far,
Sure.
As a burgeoning entrepreneur coming out of the corporate experience. Where have you sort of picked up some advice and then potentially have pivoted a little bit? So to kind of talk about that a little bit.
Yeah. So for me, like I'm an ideation person, right? I'm a creative. And if you look at it, looks like my windows in my house I write on because they're like dry erase boards, right? So I'm like all over and I've mapped out Abe for the next 15 years, right? Oh, we could do this, we could do that, we could do this. And one of my mentors is like, you can do all of that, but like, what are you going to wrap it up in a little package to deliver? And he really helped me kind of lean into that and really helped me kind of vet out different things and bring people in from his network that are executives that would challenge me, right? I'm a subject matter expert. I will tell you, prior to Abe, what people may not know is I had 2 startups prior to that. Now, those didn't get out of the ideation stage, but it was I saw a problem, I wanted to fix it. And one of the biggest lessons I took away from it was those first 2, I was not technical and I wasn't an expert in the space. So it's not really a recipe for success, and I knew that. But now going into Abe, now I'm an absolute expert. I'd put myself up against any type of recruitment, hiring, HR leader, not that I'm competing with them, but as a founder and that knowledge base, which I think is so important going into solving this problem. So I think of it as a competitive advantage, having the 15 years of corporate experience. But then I had to bring in a technical team. And the biggest, and I actually was here at the center where everyone's like, oh gosh, outsourcing, you're going to spend so much money. You're not going to get what you want. So I said, okay, how do I solve for that now? So I brought on a technical advisor that I wholeheartedly trusted and used his team in the Ukraine that he's been working with for 20 years that he trusted. And he knew that they were going to be able to exceed my expectations. And quite honestly, one of the things I did where my corporate background I think helped was I actually had a session with this Ukrainian team. And I said, you guys are part of my team. So I gave them a full explanation of who I was, what we want to build, what the future vision was, and to the point where they were going above and beyond on my build. So my scope of work, they were going out of scope of work consistently. They were coming to me like, you haven't thought of this. I just found this. What do you think about that? To the point that like their boss was like, okay, Beth, like they're doing a lot of free work for you. I was like, but they're excited about it. So I would say like when you bring people into it, you need to build a level of excitement and people will be with you long term, but there's some people that are going to serve your team in a short period of time to help you overcome certain things, and that's okay. And having those open conversations and describing kind of what those roles and responsibilities are, again, going back to like job descriptions and KPIs, like even early on, I think it's so important because it takes the uncertainty out of it.
You brought up something really interesting about the technical piece, and you recognize, okay, maybe I shouldn't go down this pathway because I'm not a subject matter expert, but I am in this. I'm going to go with my passion. I'm going to go with what I know. We get a lot of entrepreneurs that we talk to all the time where they may not be a technical person, but they have identified a challenge that does require a strategic solution, but they don't know how to implement the technical piece. Like, for example, I'm not a software developer. I don't know a lot about it. And I have to rely on the fact that someone's going to guide me down a certain path. And oh boy, it's going to cost you a lot of money. It's going to take you a lot of time. And I'm not self-sufficient that I can maintain that. I can't sustain my business and essentially nothing goes anywhere. Mm-hmm. So what kind of advice would you give an entrepreneur that has a solution potentially to a challenge, but they're not technical? They don't know anything about development, and yet they know that's the key piece of the recipe that's going to get them to the next level. How do you handle something like that?
Yeah, you have to be very deeply convicted in the problem you're solving, like because you will potentially face insecurities because you don't have that technical background. But everything you can learn, right? We're not saying you have to go code, right? But what we launched with Abe, I built that. Right, I gave the direction, I gave the vision. I learned some issues, but I also brought people in to help me. Right, like, does this look right? What have you seen with that? And that's what I had to lean on my strengths, which is building strong teams. And that's where I brought technical expertise, technical advice in, because I didn't have that knowledge base. Now I'm progressively getting better. I'm making sure I'm understanding and learning. Will I ever be a software engineer? No, I don't have time to do that, right? But now that I have the team, the vision, you have to be so specific on step by step of what you need to develop. So even if you're not technical, that's fine. But I learned that too. Like, don't assume anything. Don't assume they're going to take the next step and they're going to copy paste what you asked of them. That's going to be your product. So I spent a lot of time on documenting what I wanted and had somebody else challenge it and read it for me. I mean, it was probably like 40-page of documentation just to get to MVP. So you could do it, right? Like, but you have to know you're going to feel like there's that knowledge gap. You have to be comfortable being in that uncertain period, and you have to trust other people. So it's totally possible, right? Like, you want the person who's experienced the pain, knows that, and then plug in the right technical, but you've got to lead them with a roadmap every step of the way.
Great advice.
I like the grassroots efforts that you're doing on the venture capital side. Like, hey, use my product and see how it is. Obviously, the university tracks as well. Look, I could help you sort of take these legacy systems and use Abe and do greater targeting. What's the future of Abe from a monetization standpoint? So some venture capitalists we've had here. They're always looking for some level of traction and adoption. So to kind of talk about that, is this going to be a SaaS model, month to month, annual? Kind of what are you seeing, or what are you projecting for Abe as far as monetization?
Yeah, we're here to make money, and what we're looking at obviously is a subscription-based model. But the big vision of this is that companies, when you look at employee experience as a whole, right, trying to customize training development for every learning style, for every background, for every experience, that's why training falls flat. You're trying to provide a culture experience. Why is that not working? Because everybody's different. Everybody's motivated by different things, right? You do one thing, some people are like, that was great, other people are like, that was lame, right? So how I envision Abe is being kind of that decentralized employee experience platform where you can customize all these different elements that you're doing in-house, right? So we look at, from a monetization standpoint, yes, hiring is our first step. Companies will pay us to find talent. It's like an insurance policy, right? It's that candidate confidence. Like, prioritize who you match with Abe, because we're going to streamline that process. And if you hire the person from Abe, we're going to track that engagement. We're going to track, did they deliver? Is that somebody we want to copy and paste and go find you another one of, right? There's a whole path to that. But as we look at our marketplace, we want to bring in these different services that are going to sell to companies one-on-one and saying, no, sell it here, bring it here, have companies buy into this so their people are trained, their people have career pathing, their people have all of this. And you have to have the mindset of doing what's best for the employee, because an employee that's highly effective, is fulfilled, and is engaged is going to provide the productivity and the performance that you need. So that's the really big vision, is bringing in these partners that can really take that and provide this individual. And companies have to have the mindset, whether they work here or not, like, we do care about your career growth. We care about your career path. We hope you stay here with us, right? So that's really the big vision. Our monetization strategy, we should be at $5 million in the next 2 years. And then just the upward scope of how we'll integrate other partners to bring in the revenue will be there.
So let's talk a little bit about the changing world around us. The world was one way up until, let's just say, the beginning of 2020. Global pandemic impacts everybody in the world, which also changes the workforce needs, the way companies operate, and then the world came back into a normal world. I don't think we're there and we'll ever be normal again. However, it's changed the scope of company demands and the skills that are needed, and then the expectations of the new workforce. How does your technology adapt to be able to make sure that you can create a win-win for all the different parties that are involved?
Yeah, I think through the pandemic, trust was lost on both sides, right? And if you remember, employees had so much control, right? Bonuses were getting thrown out. People were getting huge pay increases. People were just trying to keep talent. And within a year, the pendulum swung the other way. And now people, they were working from home. Now they're not. Now they're not getting a promotion this year because the economic times are tough. So you're not going to get that 3 to 5%. And that loyalty piece is not there. And I don't know if that's ever going to come back, right? And I think the older generations where you work 20 years, the trust is broken. And even companies, the new generation, every generation has their, they always pick on them for some reason. And I'm like, millennials don't look so bad, do we, right? But when we look at Abe, we're saying, okay, if we're trying to drive success, right? And we're trying to drive commitment, not loyalty. Long-term retention is probably a thing of the past, right? But when we look at how we're problem solving, if we can help you find that right match, and we can start building that, right? Like, because you automatically are going to have that fit. They're going to deliver what they've promised you, right? And on both sides, right? So if we can bring that trust and transparency in at the beginning of this process, before a person's even on your HRIS system, now we're going to start building that trust from a platform that was honest. So it's like Honest Abe and trust and transparency. Now we're not solving for all of that. There's no silver bullet to any of this. But if we can on the ground level have a foundational right match, we're going to be able to drive that retention, that engagement. So it's really like a philosophy that we have around it. Now, do we know where the workforce will be? No, I think there's also elements of gig work and side hustles and project-based work. There's a play for us there, right? It's a play for us to, hey, I've got an extra 10 hours a week. Let me plug into this, right? So while we're not built to do that at this point, we're very well aware that how rapidly companies are changing. You're not going to want to keep some people after 2 years, right? That skill set might be burned out, and another company might love that skill set. So we talk about the AI and all of this great stuff that Abe was built before ChatGPT launched. So we were a data company before we were an AI company. AI has enhanced everything we're doing. But from a workforce standpoint, I mean, everybody's got to keep up with the times and maximize that person when you have them. Give them what you promise, and vice versa. Be a great employee to employer, a great employee to your employer. And then hopefully we make some better kind of fulfilling things. But yeah, I would say there's no silver bullet to it. But people have to think about hiring, recruitment, development in a totally different way than they did even 3 years ago.
Are you ready for the curveball?
Is it time?
Oh gosh.
It's time. So I'm going to ask you to solve both of these in the next minute. No, I'm not.
Please don't.
With one hand on each one.
We call this the
With
Rubik.
one eye closed.
Yes. Well, you're talented. But what I like to do is throw what we call the Rubik's Cube question. So the intention is for me to stump you. And I'm fairly successful at it. Not always, but fairly. So here's my question to you. If you could send yourself a message 10 years ago and only use 3 words, what would those 3 words be?
Bet on yourself.
Ooh. Yeah, that's 3 words.
That wasn't too tricky. I thought don't ask me a history question or something
Okay,
like that.
I got another one for you, though, since you're too fast. All right.
Well, you do have 2 Rubik's Cubes.
I do have 2 Rubik's Cubes.
Okay, all right.
So if you could talk to any animal in the world and have a conversation with it, what animal would it be, and what would be the nature of the conversation?
I'm thinking lion because they're the most powerful. So I guess my question would be, how do you pick your prey?
That's a good one, too. Yeah. I think she accomplished them both.
It's like how you pick your talent.
I guess, hey, when your mind's in it, you can't get out of it, right?
Yeah.
You're obsessive with it. And you get blind spots too, right? Like, I think that's what's cool about this process is like, I'm almost too self-aware and almost too open to advice that I'm like, yes, tell me more, give me everything. But when you asked about a lesson learned, and one other thing I think is really important is when you get advice, make sure it's coming from an expert in that space or in that element of business. Everyone wants to give you an opinion, right? Yeah. Opinion's different than advice. And I learned that early on. So that's why I was very strategic about who I surround myself with, because I want the experts in those areas. Now, I'm welcome to opinions. I like to have those conversations, but like take advice from people who've been there and have been in your shoes or trying to solve similar problems, because then that will help you progress faster.
That's great advice. So Beth, congratulations on all the success thus far. You're on your way. You've successfully raised already.
Yes, we did a 200,000 angel round.
Terrific. Yep. And are you going to be looking for more VC, or are you going to bootstrap from here, or what's the plan?
Yeah, so I've bootstrapped the last 2 years. So that's something that, I left my corporate role. I tossed that salary right out the window. So yes, we are going to be raising. We're going to be raising $2 million to get us to bring our team on board that we need, and also to get our marketing. As of this point, we really haven't been able to invest in the marketing piece, and we know there's an educational and awareness piece to what we're doing. So keep an eye out. But yes, we are raising and looking for great investors that align to our mission. that come with solutions and teams they want to hire for. But also, again, you kind of have to bet on the jockey at this point. And that's where, I'm hoping we can get some great people around me. Up to this point, we've done really well with having a great community. So we're just going to continue to do that.
Well, terrific. So how do venture capitalists, angel investors, potential prospects get a hold of you, get a hold of the company?
954. You can email me at beth@abe.work, WORK, and you can visit our website at www.abe.work, WORK.
Beth Elletson, the company is Abe, Honest Abe. I love the narrative, love the story, love the jockey, and the opportunity for sure. So congratulations on the success, and thanks so much for being on the podcast today.
Awesome.
And when you're ready to do your marketing, Jim and I do radio and TV. So
I can see that. Maybe Abe will be a sponsor one day. I mean, we'll see.
Very great. Thanks again.
Thank you,
Appreciate
guys.
it.
Thank you so much.
Remember to subscribe, like, and share the Sunshine Startups Live podcast and follow us on social media. If you're interested in sponsoring or appearing on the show, please email us at booking@sunshinestartups.live.